I think there's a natural jealousy and dislike that they have had toward Robyn.
There's also an underlying tension that's been simmering under the surface. One fans think is rooted in old-time jealousy and resentment of Robyn Brown. Hi all, welcome back to Reality Check. Don't forget to subscribe and give this video a thumbs up if you haven't already to help support the channel. Let's get started on the drama that's engulfing the Sister Wives fans. Robyn Brown, perhaps the most discussed participant on Sister Wives, has been back in the limelight following a dramatic twist in the most recent tell-all installment. With the family, though, still distraught over Garrison's untimely death, emotions are running high. But even with the sadness, the Browns, Kody, Robyn, Christine, Janelle, and Mary met with host Sukanya for an interview that took a few surprises along the way. And just when you thought you'd heard it all, Robyn drops a bombshell, one that keeps Kody in a way that the fans didn't anticipate. Let's roll back. At the tell-all, Kody was confronted with some tough questions. Sukanya asked him squarely, "Did you ever treat your wives equally?" The question took Kody aback. His answer? He said that he and Robyn were criticized just for loving each other more openly and maintained that everyone loves in his or her unique manner. Then he went further, denying that his love with Robyn was on the same level. Sounds romantic? Perhaps. But the catch? Kody had already proclaimed that he wanted to treat all his wives equally, leaving viewers and Sukanya completely bewildered by the contradiction. But it didn't end there. Robyn, being rarely vulnerable, gently called out Kody. When he insisted that he never loved Christine, Janelle, or Mary, Robyn did not flinch. "That feels like rewriting the past," she told him. A soft but firm dismissal of Kody's version. She even remembered how, in the early stages of their courtship, Kody would say repeatedly how much he loved his 3 wives. So, what did happen? Did Robyn's presence expose Kody's true priorities? Or did Kody just stop trying? Now here's where things get even more revealing. Kody then explained he was trying to give Robyn the same type of love he provided the other wives, but his former wives weren't buying it. Mary replied in shock, asking if being like Robyn was the only manner to be loved by Kody. Janelle dismissed that as something that never took place. Christine, more bluntly put, called it a blatant falsehood. And just when you think the soap opera is finished, there's more. Part 2 of the tell-all is on June 1st, 2025, and delivers even more bombshells. Janelle will discuss her own frustrations with Kody and with Robyn, and Christine will weigh in on being labeled Kody's favorite ex-wife. You won't want to miss it. But here's a surprise. Was Robyn really a blessing in disguise for the original wives? Through the years, Robyn has been subjected to severe criticism by the fans, most of them accusing her of being responsible for the downfall of the family. Some also accuse her of manipulating Kody into doing things that benefited only her and her kids. It all went wrong after the relocation to Flagstaff, and by the last season, both Mary and Janelle exited. Surprisingly, though, some fans on the internet are changing their mind about Robyn. What if Robyn's arrival into the family was the very key that set Christine, Janelle, and Mary free from an abusive dynamic? One viewer wrote that Robyn's presence, although devastating on its surface, could have been what pushed the original wives over the edge, finally allowing them to take back their lives. And where are they now? It's difficult to disagree. Christine is remarried and living her best life. Janelle is constructing her dream house in North Carolina. Mary is pro-something in Utah, loving herself and individual growth. They're all living their best lives after the divorce. But who exactly lost out on all this? From many a fan's perspective, it's the kids, those who don't get to see their father much, those who saw him build a new family with Robyn without them. That's where the true heartache is. And maybe that's the real story behind the drama. Some truths don't hit you until much later, but when they do, they change everything. That's what Christine experienced. In one of the most exposed one-on-one interviews, she confessed something profound. Watching Kody and Robyn's relationship, she gained an understanding of what love might look like and what she'd been settling for the whole time. That realization didn't only open her eyes, it made all three of the original wives aware that they'd been settling for emotional scraps. And the plot gets only more dramatic from this point forward. When Robyn Brown entered the Brown family, she didn't merely introduce a new attitude. She introduced financial baggage. Deeply in debt, Robyn's arrival was controversial from the start. Christine, Mary, and Janelle not only paid off her debts, but they helped construct a house for her too. And while this was happening, these very women were struggling to find housing for themselves following the relocation of the family to Flagstaff. Kody had vowed to bring the whole family together under one dream, the Coyote Pass land. But that dream never materialized. The land was sold, and with it, the prospect of coming together vanished. What followed was something no one could have anticipated. In a deeply emotional sit-down, the entire family, former partners now scattered by heartbreak, gathered once more. This wasn't just a reunion, it was a reckoning. Years of grief, resentment, and silence hung in the air as they prepared to confront the truth, not just for themselves, but for millions of viewers who had followed their story. There was no smiling face in that studio that did not bear the burden of shattered bonds and unuttered pain. The demise of one of their children left a somber shadow in the room, portraying the rawness in each word. In spite of aiming at shedding light, the reunion soon degenerated into a confrontation filled with emotional awakenings. Host Sukanya, experienced and unflappable, began the discussion cautiously. But as the questioning became more assertive, so did the tension, until it eventually overflowed. Kody, one-time spiritual leader of the Brown family, was finally asked the question that had been brewing all those years. Did you ever really love each of your wives equally? His response was adamant and incendiary. He insisted years of criticism had been unfairly directed at him simply because he loved Robyn more openly. He felt the backlash wasn't favoritism. It was the world punishing an undeniable love. But rather than diffusing the tension, his defense only widened the chasm. He attempted to justify it, explaining that everybody attaches differently. But then came the ultimate shock. Kody acknowledged that the love he had for Robyn was stronger than the love he felt for his other wives. The ensuing silence was oppressive. This was not a confession. It was a violation of every vow he'd ever made, on and off TV. Years before, Kody had stood before his family and the world, promising to love and treat his wives the same. Now his oath cut like a knife. And then, finally, Robyn spoke. Eccentric for sidestepping conflict and being a public defender of Kody, Robyn caught her breath and disassembled his story quietly. She explained simply. What he was telling her now didn't jibe with what he told her originally. Throughout the wooing, Kody repeatedly expressed love for each of his 3 wives. That love, Robyn explained, was what led her to join the family initially. So, if that love never existed, as Kody now insisted, then he wasn't merely lying to them, he was lying to her as well. It was an uncommon, unvarnished moment from Robyn, and instead of defending him, she called him out on the inconsistency, implying that Kody's rewriting of history had less to do with telling the truth and everything to do with saving face. And then, one after another, the other wives came forward. Mary, the most emotionally strongest of the three, broke open about her years of disconnection. Her inner strength melted into an aching question. Did she ever truly know love in this marriage? It's something that many viewers had asked on her behalf for years, and now, finally, it was spoken aloud. She asked it with a wistful smile. Did they all have to turn into a version of Robyn just to get a crumb of the love that was promised to them? It was a compelling moment, one that lingered in the air like a gauntlet. Janelle, the practical and fiercely self-reliant wife, laughed, not with humor, but in disbelief. If he had simply been honest with us, she said, we could have made other decisions a long, long time ago. Her words sliced through the room like a long overdue truth. And then there was Christine, the firecracker, the unapologetic voice of resistance. Her demeanor wasn't bitter, it was weary. She wasn't mad for the sake of anger. She was exhausted from years of quieting down. She called Kody's narrative what it was, a rewrite, a personal myth intended to justify decades of disparity. No amount of revision, she declared, can erase what we lived through. And as the lens hung on their faces, one thing became irrevocably certain. There was just one member of that family who ever got to decide how love was supposed to be. For Kody, there was always the ideal wife, but his idea of justice, giving everyone the same love, wasn't justice. It was favoritism, masquerading as fairness. The others were supposed to get by on the crumbs, keep coming back for a marriage version that never once provided them with the respect they were worthy of. They were no longer those women, though, no longer submissive, no longer waiting. They stood now as individuals, no longer willing to sacrifice their lives for a dream that never truly included them. The mask had finally dropped. And then, as the lights dimmed on this chapter, the tone shifted. The conversation turned toward what comes next. Robyn, who had once been considered the favorite, told openly about the burden she'd borne. Her affair with Kody hadn't insulated her from criticism. It had made her the focus of it, the eye of the hurricane. The same pedestal she'd been placed upon was now a lightning rod, and now she too was wondering, where do I fit in this dysfunctional family? Elsewhere, Christine expressed a deep-seated resentment, not against Kody specifically, but against Robyn. Their sisterhood had become tense and mute, with words left unspoken. And Janelle? She resented being labeled the most favored ex. That label, she explained, was offensive, not complimentary. No woman, she said with shaking conviction, should ever feel validated by being compared to another. What this tell-all exposed wasn't merely the demise of a plural marriage, was the enfranchisement of women who had, for too long, been defined by the failure of a man to love them whole. It was a reckoning. And at the center of it all stood one provocative woman, Robyn, who had for years been held as the culprit behind the destruction of the family, a disruptor, a wedge, a homewrecker. But now, a counter-narrative was emerging in a shockingly different form. Online fans started redefine her role, labeling her as an accidental blessing. Because of her, they claimed, the other wives finally had an awakening. Her presence had the emotional cracks burst wide open, exposing just how skewed things had been for years. Her arrival didn't just shake up the Brown family, it freed it. Final thoughts. Was Robyn Brown the villain or the catalyst? That all depends on who you ask. But one thing's not debatable. Her presence brought the truth to light. And for Mary, Christine, and Janelle, that truth has been the cornerstone of a whole new life. What do you think? Was Robyn a disruptor or an unexpected gift? Leave your comments below, and if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe and give this episode a thumbs up, because the next chapter of this family's story is just getting started, and we'll be right here for all of it. The family might at last all live together in peace, a place named Coyote Pass. It was to be the great leveler, the promise of togetherness after decades of separation. But it never came true. Rather, the land remained vacant, then was eventually sold, a reminder of all that had been promised but not given. The wives, having been assured they'd each have a home of their own, were instead renting, moving into trailers, or living in unstable conditions. And yet the new wife's house fell into place hurriedly and easily, paid for, furnished. For a lot of viewers, this was more than a logistical misstep. It was a betrayal, a reminder that despite all the rhetoric about fairness and a shared vision, only certain promises were fulfilled. And the rest? Abandoned in Flagstaff's dust. A story rewritten. As the dust finally settles on the Brown family's decade-long drama, one thing becomes harder and harder to deny. This wasn't just a tale of polygamy crumbling. It was a tale of awakening. Robyn's coming, though tumultuous and contentious, was the lightning bolt that finally cracked open the hollowed tree. What had lain beneath layers of duty and emotional reserve was at last exposed. Lopsided love, shattered vows, and long-buried discontent. But out of that maelstrom, the women emerged, not as discarded wives, but as survivors, as rebuilt women. Christine, formerly burdened by religious obligation, now glows in a fresh new marriage where respect isn't something earned, it's the standard. Janelle, the anchor and pragmatist, is finally forging her own dream life, removed from the din, to show that sometimes peace is the greatest rebellion. And Mary, once the unofficial title holder as the silent sufferer, has become a voice of individual empowerment, defining herself beyond the position she had filled for decades. Their growth is, in a sense, the legacy of the very woman so many blamed for the family's downfall. The price of change. But let there be no mistake. The price was steep. The children, particularly from the first 3 wives, have borne an unseen sorrow. Most of them now maintain emotional distance from their father, some completely estranged. For these children, the story wasn't a lesson in freedom. It was a story of abandonment. As Kody built a new life around Robyn and her children, most of his older children stood on the sidelines looking in, asking themselves where they belonged in his new life. Some made no secret of their hurt, others kept quiet. But the emptiness was felt, intensely and irreparably. These broken relationships underscore the harsh truth behind broken family systems. Adults can recover, but children often find themselves having to navigate the aftermath on their own. From fracture to foundation. In the end, what was at one time articulated as the coming of a disruptor is now considered by many to be the spark that compelled a long overdue reckoning. Robyn didn't merely change the Brown family, she bared it. Her presence held up a mirror that couldn't be averted from. And what the wives saw? Everything changed. They ceased to accept partial love. They ceased to wait for fairness that never materialized, and they began living for themselves. Final reflection. No more is the sister wives' story, one of a man juggling several relationships. It's about the women who outgrew the balance sheet altogether. It's about finding value without waiting for permission. And now the question is, was Robyn the demise of the Brown family? Or was she the trigger for the other women's emancipation? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and ring that notification bell so you won't miss our in-depth looks at reality TV's most complicated family dramas. The next act of this saga, it's not polygamy any longer. It's freedom. The aspiration was simple: a beautiful, large piece of land where the whole family would live in harmony, living a new life of prosperity and togetherness. That aspiration never happened for the Brown family. The long-awaited Coyote Pass, where they were to find their haven, was ultimately sold. Hope of a harmonious community living situation was lost, replaced by disappointment and financial burdens. This breakdown only served to open wounds in the family's feelings and pull already tenuous ties. Public perception regarding the newest wife has been sharply polarized. Some view her as the patriarch's emotional buffer, insulating him from reality and distracting him from his previous wives. Her reserved and deliberate public outings have served only to encourage rumor-mongering. Is she a calculated guardian of family reputation, or icy and manipulative? Fans are polarized. Some respect her tact. Others allege manipulation. But the histories of the original wives are also histories of strength and resilience. Even after years of living with the stresses of plural marriage, these women have reclaimed their lives. One wife discovered new love and established a family founded upon respect and true affection. Another is creating a tranquil haven, a home that represents her dreams away from the conflict of the past. The third has become a fierce voice for emotional health, motivating others along the way with her own path of self-acceptance. The Brown family's journey is far from complete, but their path from broken dreams to self-discovery reminds us all of what can be achieved through resilience and hope. Thanks for the watch. Don't forget to subscribe for daily updates about your favorite reality check. See you soon.